Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
We're so pleased to bring you a two-part series this week and next week, and our title is A Goodwill Mission to South America. We have four guests that were on that mission with others, and we're so fortunate to have them here this week and next week. They went as a group, and they were dealing with medical assistance to the people in the area they were at, along with some veterinary medicine work and construction work and sports. And therefore, I welcome four people to the program to discuss this exciting journey. First of all, I welcome Alan Ortman to our program, and he's a pharmacist, and welcome. Pleased to have you here. Next to him is Dr. Mike Dixon, who's a medical doctor in Coeur d'Alene. And Dr. Dixon, it's great to have you here today. Our third guest is Becky Demers, and she is a nurse and was on the trip. And our last guest today was Reverend Matt Morgan, a youth pastor at the Lake City Community Church. And all of our guests were from that church. And they do a number of these missions, and they're commended by us for doing those. And as always, I'm pleased to have our two panelists, Janelle Burke, who is an attorney in the state of Idaho, and next to her is Erna Reinhardt, Director of Public Relations at North Idaho College, and we'll commence immediately with questions from Janelle Burke.
Each of you gave significant time to this mission. And so, Becky, can you tell us, how did you get in touch with this mission? How did you decide to go on it?
I initially was presented the opportunity to go on the trip. Several of my friends go to Lake City Community Church, and they knew that I was interested in this type of work, and I got 3 phone calls within a week of Matt introducing the trip, and at that time I started going to Lake City Church and learned more about the mission.
And Mike, what made you decide to do this?
Well, actually, I've never done a trip like this before, and I wasn't even thinking about doing it. I knew that Matt was planning the trip, and I was kind of interested, but someone asked me to go talk to Matt because he had a need, and he explained the trip to me, and without even thinking about it, I just said yes. And I don't know where that came from. Surprised myself and my wife.
So, were you the only medical doctor on the trip?
No, there were 3. There were 2 others.
And what about you, Alan? How did you learn about it or decide to do it?
Well, like Mike, I had never been on a missions trip either. And Matt had approached me about the missions trip that they were doing, and when he talked to me about it, I just suddenly became interested. I had, felt like an opportunity for me to use the abilities that God had given me in something other than just selfishly, but to use it to help other people in a way that, I don't as a pharmacist here, But it was just exciting to me to be able to have an opportunity like that.
And Matt, how about you? What kinds of things and communications do you have to have in order to set up a trip like this?
Well, to set up the trip, the biggest was our communication down in Honduras. We had to make contact with a missionary down there, and he had served down there for several years with his family, and he now takes teams in to do the type of projects that we do. So first we had to hook up with him, then we had to go down actually into Honduras, take video, see exactly where we would stay, what we would do, and then communicate it to the church and say, this is kind of the dream, this is what we want to do, this is what we've been invited to do. Anybody that'd like to come, want to invite you to a meeting. I went specifically to some of our professionals and asked them beforehand because I knew if I didn't have them, there's no way I could pull it off. And so I'm so glad they came. And we had professionals from construction, from medical, from veterinarian, and then also some sports people too that went with us, and they're really the key that made it all happen.
Erna Reinhardt.
Thank you, and welcome to the show to all of you. I'm going to start with Matt again, because Matt, sounds like you were the organizer of this trip, but tell us a little bit about Honduras and what the needs were in that country.
Yeah. Tegucigalpa, Honduras is the capital of Honduras, and in the city, if you're in the main city, it's a very metropolitan type area. You'll see McDonald's, you'll see Wendy's, you'll see all of the things that we see here. And all of the dignitaries, all of the government officials, anybody that works for the government will be in the main city. So there, you kind of, other than people being guarded, with guns all around you and barbed wire, marking the houses, you would kind of think, well, this is kind of normal. But as soon as you step even, just right outside of the main city, you go into what they call the barrios, the neighborhoods. And you'll see pictures later of these houses that are just kind of thrown up shacks, which is where most of the people live. So most of the people in Honduras, the typical Honduran, they live on about $5 a day. That's about what they make in their wages. They live day to day. They don't have medical insurance. What they eat is whatever they can make that day. So they do their best. They live day to day. So the needs are huge. We were really a drop in the bucket. Some of the greatest things you'll hear about what they heard on the medical side of things were their needs, where we helped them for the time we were there. But if it weren't for more people going down, they'll still have the same afflictions, the same thing that they went through. So as far as need goes, shoes, they didn't have shoes on their feet, socks. If they had shoes, they were oversized or worn out. Clothing was, they had some clothing, but we gave a lot away. Every need you can think of, they had it.
And Mike, this question is for you. I understand that there were a total of 45 people that went on the mission. Did you guys stay in one part of the country, or did you spread out and do your mission throughout different regions?
We did it all in Tegucigalpa. There were 45 people on the mission, but there were only 14 on the medical team, and 4 or 5 on the veterinary team, and the rest were on the construction team and the soccer team.
And one more question, Becky, this is for you. In terms of preparing for this mission, I would suspect that you took a lot of materials with you. Can you tell us a little bit about the kinds of things you took on the trip with you?
I can. We really didn't know for sure what we were going to need. We ended up getting stuff we didn't need, but I went to a missions warehouse that Sacred Heart has. They donated a lot of stuff. We went to Kootenai Medical Center. They gave us some material. We just presented to a lot of people in the community. Mike and Dr. Nemec also brought stuff from their office. We really sort of over-prepared, I would say. Going down again, hopefully we'll all do that again. We'll know more what we need. And we had set up for, I'm an emergency room nurse, so lacerations, wound prep, and we didn't see that. It was more of a medical clinic. But it was, we wanted to be prepared for anything, and we really were. And so we just went throughout the community and asked for donations, and everybody was very generous.
Excellent.
Alan, I have one question for you, and then the good news for our viewers is that we're going to show some visuals so that they feel like they've maybe been on the trip too. In our discussion so far, it's been indicated, of course, that this obviously is a two-way street, that you were helping the people that you serve, but you also were greatly rewarded. Would you share just a few thoughts with us of why this kind of work by you and others that do this around the world is so important for both the receiver and the giver?
Well, for the receiver, it's obvious. They're getting a physical need met. We gave away quite a large amount of medication, both pain medications, antibiotics, things for parasites that the people were desperately in need for. But the return for, I think, all of us was just the joy in giving, the seeing the happiness of the people there, which was quite amazing. That these people that have virtually nothing by our standards were quite happy people and very friendly, and developing some amount of relationship with them, which for my part was rather difficult since I don't speak any Spanish, so I wasn't able to develop quite the relationship that I would have liked in a lot of ways, but there was definitely relationships that developed stronger just amongst us team members. That was good.
With your answer, I just think instantly of President Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter and the Carter Center. It's remarkable that they have a lot of resources and they're serving around the world. In fact, one thing, and Dr. Dixon would correct me if I'm wrong in how I address this, but ringworm, I guess it is, it's a great problem in Africa, and they've almost eliminated it. They've gone in with their great staffs and purified water and all those things, and I believe they said on an interview the other day that there was only one country left where there was any problem at all. So I link your mission to his and the Carter Center, and so I hope someday that you all can communicate with one another and get ideas. But with that, I just think, Dr. Dixon, it's really important to take our viewers on your trip, and our staff's going to put up on this TV screen over here where you can watch slides, and if you'll describe each one as we go through them, please. This is what I think the Reverend was talking about a minute ago about the living conditions.
That's right. This is a very typical neighborhood in the barrios, and I think one of the things to point out, of course, the houses are basically shacks and they're very small, but there's laundry hanging everywhere. They're very clean, and
the climate's such where they can do that the year round. I assume they don't have the kind of technical things we do.
Right.
We'll go to the next scene now. If you'll tell us that one.
This is also just out in one of the neighborhoods. We're walking, just went walking one day out, took a break and walked around and took pictures of people in the neighborhood. There's a couple of kids just watching us.
It shows the poverty again, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And our third.
People love to have their picture taken. The
Oh,
little
they
girl
do?
smiling.
Yeah.
And what was so fun about that was that my wife would take pictures, and they would all say, "We want to be on TV in America."
I think the next one also illustrates this one too. They did get on TV, didn't they?
This is at the hotel we stayed at, or most of the group stayed at. It's just our morning get together where Matt would kind of give us the agenda for the day and instructions for the day before we got in the buses and went to work.
Okay, we'll move on. Now, this is another shot of a photograph of some of the neat people there.
Yep, these just some kids waiting to be seen at the medical clinic.
They're going to come in for some care.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then our next one.
This is Al in the pharmacy. We worked out of 3 churches, 2 days in each church, and just created our clinic in whatever space they had available. And this was the pharmacy in the first church, and that's Brian Klein that worked with Al to dispense medications.
And we move on to the next one.
And this is
Dr. Dixon, isn't it?
That's me. Yep. Just seeing patients. Not many of us spoke Spanish, so we worked through interpreters, and the young lady on the left was my interpreter, and she stayed with me the whole week.
That was very essential, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we'll move on.
Same thing, just one of the clinics, and seeing a patient there.
Okay, and then we had several shots of the actual clinic.
And this is the triage area where, as they came in, they were weighed, and then the nurses interviewed them. That's Becky up on the right there, interviewing them to find out what the problem was, if they were taking any medications, had any allergies and things like that. And that's Stephen Nemec. He's the son of one of the other doctors that went, Dr. Neil Nemec, and he worked in triage, helping them to get patients ready.
Right. And I think we have a couple more.
And this is also the triage area. It's Nancy, one of the nurses, working with her interpreter.
And we have one final one. This would be for the veterinary.
This is the veterinary clinic. That's Dr. Bob Erickson, a veterinarian. He did an incredible job. And that's his son in the red hat, and some of the others, volunteers from the community that just volunteered and stayed with us through the whole day, or through the whole week. And Bob, he saw 89 dogs in one day.
89 dogs? Did you say?
Yeah, and treated for worms and ticks and parasites, and did several cancer surgeries. And it was a very busy clinic.
As to your work, how many, you medical doctors, how many could you see a day approximately?
We saw an average of about 300 a day.
Oh, that's amazing. Janelle Burke.
I'll follow up on Tony's question. Dr. Dixon, what kinds of things did you see, generally speaking?
Everyone there has parasites. We just pretty much assumed that they had intestinal parasites. And we treated almost everybody for intestinal parasites. And in addition to that, we saw skin infections, some medical illnesses like diabetes, heart problems, hypertension, and things like that. But the vast majority of it was infectious disease and mostly parasites.
Just pretty basic.
Yeah.
Ellen, my next question is for you. What kinds of safety issues did you have while you were there? Or were there any?
I guess I don't really think there were any particular safety issues as far as working in the clinic. There were safety concerns that were given to us about the area because of the risks of being, kidnapped and that kind of thing. But we all went together in groups and stayed in, areas that were, safe parts of the city when we were out at night. So, but as far as in the clinic settings, we were set up in various churches in the barrios, and I don't think there was really any safety concerns particularly.
Becky, my question for you has to do with what kinds of things you saw that were women's issues. What kinds of things did you identify with as a woman when you saw the women of that country?
Well, the women don't have a lot of independence there, and bringing into the clinic, very few men came into the clinic. It was usually women with their children, and some women, 20 years old, bringing 3 children in. Also, you saw a lot of young girls, like 12 to 14, bringing their siblings in. So I don't know if their mothers were working, but one person who stood out to me was a little girl who was about 12 years old, and she probably only weighed about 70 pounds, and she was carrying her little brother. And I think Mike saw this patient. He was paralyzed from I believe, the neck down, and she brought him in for parasites. Do you remember him?
Mm-hmm. I do.
And she carried him up from quite a ways and brought him in, and he was seen. And then later in the day, she came back and was seen. But it was pretty significant for her to be packing around a 40-pound child. And a lot of the young girls cared for their siblings like they were their own children.
Do you know the cause of the paralysis?
I do not.
I think it was a birth injury.
So it could have been something that might have been prevented in this country.
Possibly.
And Matt, how many days were you gone?
We were there for 10 days.
And you had a pretty definite pattern of what you were going to do each day?
Yeah, we needed to set the trip up. With that many people, I wanted it to be set up for they knew what they were going to do all day, every day. So.
Get the most out of the trip.
Yeah.
Erna Reinhardt.
I'm going to start with Alan, and we'll go all the way around the table, please. On this mission, did you have the opportunity to work with your counterparts? Did you have any time at all to network or to mentor to another pharmacist?
Unfortunately, I didn't. I was, during the time that we were there, it was, as in the makeshift pharmacy that we had, it was actually quite busy. You talk about, pharmacists doing a lot of counting and pouring, and that's down there, that's definitely what I was doing because of the volume of the patients that I was dealing with. So I didn't really have any time for any kind of networking.
Okay, Mike?
Not a lot. There was a Honduran physician who joined us for the first 3 days, and she just kind of showed up. We didn't know she was coming. She just showed up, so we gave her some space, and she went to work. But she spoke only Spanish, and we didn't get a chance to really communicate with her very much. There was another physician who is American, but has been down there for several years, and does clinics, rural clinics, who spent a day with us. We learned a lot from him, too.
Great. Becky?
Unfortunately, we did not get to go out to the medical clinics in the community, which we did want to do, but we were literally busy all day seeing hundreds of patients. The neat thing was my daughter went with me, who's 13. We stayed in the dorms with mostly the soccer players, and it was neat to mentor, excuse me, the teenage girls, and that was an excellent experience. It was very nice.
Excellent. And Matt, how about you? Did you get to have any time with another pastor?
Yeah, we worked with 3 different churches, so I was able to work with the network of pastors that were there, as well as the district, over the whole district. So for them, it wasn't me mentoring them. I think they were more of a blessing to me. They were really, the way they work together. There are three churches within close proximity, and no competition whatsoever. Great guys working for. In fact, one of the pastors of one of the churches was in charge of the construction project at the other church. So it was really neat just to see their involvement with each other and how they work together.
Excellent.
May I add one
You bet.
comment. I just thought one of the things that we did have an opportunity to do was take a tour of the city in the bus, and one of the interpreters told us we had passed by a couple of hospitals, and one was a very modern-looking hospital that all the government officials and dignitaries and stuff went to, and the other hospital that was for the general public, they said they didn't even have running water in it, which I thought was quite amazing.
My question is for Reverend Morgan, first of all, and it's kind of a follow-up of Erna Reinhardt's. You are youth pastors, we indicated in the beginning of the program, with the Lake City Community Church in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and it's a very large church with a large congregation. And so you have a number of these projects and missions. One of my former assistant works there, and she's talked about helping schedule some of these trips. So I have a rather broad question, that is, could you identify that you have other missions other than this one, and also about other organized religions in our country, and are they doing these kind of missions around the different world? And is it most of the time a communication with other religious organizations in those countries when you do this?
Yeah, we have several trips. Our dream is that we would have a global, or at least a kind of out of our basic community every quarter. So we'd have at least 4 a year. And then we would have every month something that we do in our own community. So we do a thing called Conspiracy of Kindness, where we have a lawn mowing day, a leaf raking day this weekend, where we're going to be on Government Way, just raking leaves and helping people. That kind of thing we do every month. And then these quarterly trips, we just got back from Potomac, Montana. That was 3 weeks ago. And we're setting up trips now to Mexico, Tecate, Mexico, Swaziland, Africa. Another trip to Honduras, which will happen this summer again. So we want to have trips all the time, and you have to have a contact wherever you go. And when you ask about other religious organizations, we want to partner with somebody who's already there, so that when we're there, you kind of get overwhelmed by the need. You start to see, there's so much more need here than I can possibly do. And if we go and help another organization, like we help these churches, in fact, the clinics were in the churches. And so now those churches have this, reputation in their neighborhood or barrio that they're there to help the community, and that's their goal, is to help the community. So we connect with wherever we can around the world with people, and they will say, this is what we could have you do, this is what we'd like you to do. And then as a pastor, my dream is just to take our people out of their world and put them in someone else's world, so they can see what a difference they can make, and how they can be a blessing to somebody else, and then bring it back here and then do it in our own community.
It reminds me of the People to People program. That's the organization in this country. And as people get to know one another, understand one another, it does impact all areas of international relationships. But my other question before going back to Janelle is that I assume from your particular organized religion and others in this country that on these trips, both or the domestic work you do as well as there, that it's across the board from your congregation. It's not different age groups, different professions, and I would assume that depending on what you're doing, some would require more expertise and some would not.
Yeah, absolutely. Depending on what you're going to do, like this trip here, if Mike hadn't gotten on board, it wouldn't have happened as far as the medical side. So we wouldn't even have been able to do the medical side of the trip. And if Alan hadn't gotten on board, we wouldn't be able to disperse the medicine or even really have exactly how we would even do it. And if Becky wasn't there and other nurses, then we wouldn't be able to triage the people, as well as construction pictures. They have to have people that know how to do that. So we definitely need them.
Janelle Burke.
Yeah.
My first question is for Matt, and that is with regard to doing all the kinds of things, the red tape that's necessary in order to get into Honduras, to get from this country to that country. What's necessary to do something like that?
Well, with our people, first you have to have a passport to be able to go. And there's different inoculations and vaccines that we wanted to do, so we suggest what they need to do, what they have to do. So they have to get ready for the trip. And then we need to communicate also with the border and let them know we're coming and what we're bringing. We have to have manifests that say this is exactly what we're bringing into the country. And when you communicate in advance, you have a lot easier time at the borders, so that you can actually come through and be a medical mission of mercy.
And my second question is also for you, Matt, and that is, if there are some people who are listening out there that want to go on this kind of a trip, want to be a part of something for other people, what can they do? How can they contact someone to get in touch?
We would absolutely love other people to come. We're not an exclusive group, we're an inclusive group. We want to bring people who would ever want to go. And so you could go on one of our trips, and you can contact us at lakecitycc.org. It's our website, www.lakecitycc.org. Or you can get involved in one of your churches. Many churches do mission trips. It's our focus. We want to do a lot of them. And some churches do a lot, some churches do a few. It just really depends on the church. So most churches will do a mission trip, so you can check with their church.
And Alan, how about the economics of a country like Honduras? You must have seen the real contrast between the haves and the have-nots. And how do you describe that?
It was really quite amazing to me. One of the things that really struck me is that when we were driving to one of the barrios, there was a Ferrari for sale in one of the car dealerships, which I never expected to see. And then going into the barrios, like you've seen in some of the pictures, were just, literal shacks. People had nothing, basically. One of the other folks that I talked to had actually gone into one of the houses that I never had the opportunity to, but they said they had a refrigerator, but it wasn't a working refrigerator. It was used for shelves, and that was, I guess, quite common down there. So.
And Dr. Dixon, just a question with regard to the value of animals. We've talked about the number of animals that were seen. What other kinds of animals did they see, and are animals of value in that society?
Well, since this was a city, most of the animals that they saw were dogs and cats, and there were chickens and things. We didn't really see any large animals, but the dogs are all pretty bad shape. Dr. Erickson actually went down planning to do a lot of neutering. And I think he maybe did one, a cat.
On that note, I have to bring the perfect conclusion on this program. The clock always wins. It's never lost. Thank all four of you for being on the program. We appreciate you so much. And the good news to our viewers is you'll be back next week. And on next week's program, we'll give a lot of emphasis to the sports and the construction, which was part of your trip that we didn't talk much about today. It's been very great having you here. It's been extremely informative. Congratulations on your work, and we commend you for it. Again, ladies and gentlemen, be with us again next week when we do part 2 of a Goodwill mission to South America. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running in-house college production on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.